try and find out about the Chinese calculus here as well. Professor Swaran Singh, we saw how Meera Shankar said that the Chinese will be weighing the fact that the 20th Congress is coming up, and President Xi is looking at a third term, and that he might not risk a military confrontation involving China and US because that has huge implications. But at the same time, he has to be seen to be doing something because of the kind of posture that China took, and he himself took, a lot of Chinese state media took to Pelosi's visit, that Taiwan was supposed to be off limits for her, but she went there, she did all the things that she did, she intended to do, gave the kind of assurances that she wanted to give to Taiwan, and now she's, of course, flown off to South Korea.
Thank you, Gautam. I think to some extent this can be read that she, while visiting Taiwan, has called off the bluff of China, of all kind of insinuations being made as to how China will react in case the visit actually takes place. But if you look at China's long-term behavior, China is not willing to turn this kind of tension into a hot war, because it doesn't serve China at all. I mean, this is going to unite rest of the world against China in that sense. So Chinese will not use that option at all. Chinese have tried to gradually, incrementally sort of integrate Taiwan with them. So they have about $325 billion worth of trade with Taiwan. Taiwan has about $200 billion of investments in China. A million Taiwanese live in China. So they are gradually doing that kind of integration. They would not like to create a kind of a tension if they can avoid. Second, I think one has to carefully look at the personality of Nancy Pelosi. Some of you would remember that after Tiananmen Square crisis of 1989, she had gone and unfurled a banner there.
Yes.
You would also remember her as a host of presidential address in joint session of U.S. Congress when President Donald Trump came to give his speech. She was on television in the backdrop tearing off his speech. And now, her own Democratic president has publicly requested her not to go there and has said military of United States doesn't believe this is a good idea to visit there. So it's a personality of Nancy Pelosi. I wouldn't see it as a united American response in that sense. It's one individual who's known to behave in a certain fashion, has behaved again in a certain fashion. It is not going to fundamentally change the equation that China has gradually been building with Taiwan. So in that sense, one has to be a little careful. And let me put very quickly the last point. One could even insinuate certain very interesting motives as to what is the achievement. After United States had a nasty exit from Afghanistan, it decided that world focus should now come to Ukraine. And once Ukraine has turned into a stalemate, it has to shift global attention elsewhere, which is now Taiwan. Ukraine is no longer on television screens around the world now. It is Taiwan on television screens. So I think that is the gain, if one has to look at any gain that United States may have achieved. But otherwise, between president and, she's third in line for presidency. So it's an important visit, no doubt. But our own president is not supporting that. So in that sense, I think it has a very short-term gain at best. And Chinese will not fall in that trap of responding to the situation. They have already shown that they can blockade. That is what they have done by their military exercises. They have blockaded the airspace and sea routes in that area. And being nice, saying that all routes are open, etc., but demonstrated their capacity on the ground. And I think it was also uncalled for that she made an unnecessarily personal remark on President Xi Jinping. So it's basically, effort to divert attention and make media headlines move somewhere else from Ukraine. That to me looks like the immediate gain that United States has from this visit. Beyond that, I don't think it's going to change cross-strait relations in any manner.
Yes, well, we'll try and fix that. But Professor Swaran Singh, if I could again come to you, the kind of deployments that China has done, the kind of exercises that it's carrying out, has of course got implications for Taiwan, but it seems to also have implications for other countries in the region because Japan is not too far away.
I think that's an excellent point you brought about, that any kind of rise of tensions around Taiwan between the United States and China, largest and second largest economy, and of course enormous military powers, is not a good idea for the whole region. And it is not just going to impact the traffic in air or in the sea, it is going to impact the economic trends in the region, it is going to impact the political equations. You are already seeing Russia moving closer to China. I mean, what is it that the US wants to achieve by pushing this, Taiwan issue against the Chinese? You have Russians looking at it as an opportunity to showcase their support to China. Are we sort of triggering a new Cold War by bringing Russia and China still more closer to each other? So, I was basically trying to see what are the gains from such an exercise. I couldn't find any much gains other than diverting attention, because fundamentally, you have heard, I heard Ambassador Meera Shankar say that the president has made thrice some kind of statements. Remember, all three times White House officials immediately had to rush out and say, no, there's no change in China policy. We still stand by one China. Status quo on China policy stays. So that kind of reluctance, and President Biden's family connection with China raise further more questions whether he's building the Chinese, sort of game plan here, or is he pushing the American game plan here? So in that sense, there is a disjunction within the U.S. administration where the legislation, head of legislature seems to think one way, and the head of executive seem to think the other way. And that definitely doesn't create a very happy situation for countries which are going to be friendly to United States, rely on United States, allies of United States, as you mentioned. And that kind of doesn't repose confidence in a kind of a clear, united voice coming from United States while dealing with China. If they have to deal with China, they have to strengthen the neighborhood. They have to strengthen the periphery. They have to maybe even equip Taiwan with arms and demonstrate your capacity. And when it comes to demonstrating capacity, you see their naval fleets are always, days and then, days behind their schedule, etc., etc. They do not want to also intervene directly into triggering a hot war with the United States. You can go back to Lee Teng-hui's 1995 election, etc. Again, President Clinton was saying one thing and ships were moving in a very different schedule on the ground. So United States also, I understand Chinese definitely cannot afford ratcheting up the tension, particularly because, as the ambassador said, President is trying to get his unusual third term in office. But so also United States cannot afford any direct tension with China. The policy which is effective on the ground is incremental and imperceptible kind of integration, which has happened over a period of time between Taiwan and China. About 14 small countries today recognize China and recognize Taiwan as a state. And China's attempt is to reduce the number all the more. And in that sense, if United States can help in that direction, get Taiwan, more and more countries recognize it, that is the real way of helping Taiwan. But I don't think that is the intention here. The intention simply is to divert attention.
Yes, trouble with Meera Shankar's link, a bit of an unstable internet somewhere it seems. But Professor Swaran Singh, if you could respond to that in terms of what Taiwan stands to lose if, and the world indeed as well, if a conflict indeed breaks out, something happens. We're already seeing a lot of cyber attacks and military planes going into the air defense zone of Taiwan.
I think already, if you look at the domestic politics, Gautam, of Taiwan, no doubt it's an iconic example of democracy. But even within the democracy, there are clear divisions. Whenever the KMT comes to power, it speaks much more softer language in engaging Beijing compared to when Democratic Party comes to power. So right now, for last 8 years, this is the second term of the president. Tsai Ing-wen is in second term. So last 25 years has been like 8 years with KMT and 8 years with the DPP. And in that cycle, one would expect that KMT would come back again in the next time elections are held. So domestically also Taiwan has clear division where KMT, if it comes to power next time, will start starting conversation with Beijing and visiting, leaders will visit Beijing and things like that. So this could also be the reason why United States has to really connect with the Democratic Party leader, because if you look at the cyclical trend of last 25 years, maybe the KMT comes to power
Things
next
keep changing, yes.
And KMT will have much softer view on China. So I think that could also be the time frame where United States sees itself, or at least Nancy Pelosi sees this as an opportunity. And very quick last point, the last such visit by the speaker was Newt Gingrich in 1997, and he was much better known for supporting Taiwan or Taiwan's international engagement. He was the one who was pushing that Taiwan should be brought back as a member of United Nations, unlike Nancy Pelosi. Even he at that time had tried to make sure his visit to Taiwan happens along with the visit to Beijing. He told Beijing leaders that, one China policy is what America recognizes, and then went to Taipei to visit there. Unlike Nancy Pelosi's visit only to Taiwan and sort of saying things that of course has irritated a lot of Chinese. So it's, I think, very short-term gains that one can see, or even personal gains, I would dare say, to Nancy Pelosi, because I don't think President is supporting her visit to Taiwan.
All right.